Hello, hello. Happy September. I'm Suffrage Jerome, and I'm just popping by for a minute. This time, I'm just talking about the fact that I still do the weekly horoscopes. I'm just not doing them on YouTube anymore because they are now over at Romance Daily News. And I'll put the link in down below. And so you can always go over there every week. Usually Monday or Tuesday, I get my act together and send them in, and then they put them up. The magazine puts them up. And so if you go to the front page of Romance Daily News, you'll see like an overview of the week. And then when you click through, you'll get each sign individually, and so you get your horoscope for that. So that's at Romance Daily News. So right now, it is the first week of school here in Toronto. We just had Labor Day yesterday, so it's the first week of September. And so we're still feeling a lot of Virgo influence in our lives. So this is the perfect week to really just pay attention to details and clean up your crap. It's time to, tie up those loose ends, all the stuff you've sort of been procrastinating about, or maybe you haven't gotten done because you've been traveling with the summer holidays and stuff. Now is the time. The time is now. Get it together. It's time to finish up a lot of those things. And then while you're cleaning up your loose ends and throwing out stuff you don't need, and fine-tuning how your year is going to go, maybe you're picking courses for school or whatever's going on, those details are very important to pay attention to and keep track of. In the meantime, it's never too late or too early to start thinking about the big picture. And some of us, sort of have an idea of what our goals for our life are, and other people don't. And then sometimes it's good to have like your big life goals, then sort of like medium life goals, and then kind of daily goals. So if you haven't done it before, and I talked about this in my book House Magic, The Good Witch's Guide to Bringing Grace to Your Space, which is now out of print, but maybe you can find it somewhere on Amazon or something. So in my book, I talk about having bulletin boards or vision boards or easy access to places for your lists. Because even though I'm an Aquarius, I'm supposed to be like flaky, I'm also on the cusp of Capricorn, so I'm a little more grounded. And then I have a Virgo moon, so I'm really grounded. I got a lot of earth and air in my chart. So for me, I am a list maker, and I do look at my lists. And the thing I love most of all is checking off my list. I like crossing things off my list. So when I get up in the morning, especially now that we're back on track, I'll make my list for the day. I gotta fix this story. I'm gonna go work one of my outside jobs. This time, I'm gonna go to the gym. I gotta get back on track. I just rejoined the gym, so you'll see a new thinner me in a few months. And all sorts of stuff like that. So you have like your little daily thing, pick up the kids from school, make lunch, fill the lunch boxes. I don't have those things on my list, but a lot of you might. And that's important. It's, even though you might have the same old stuff day after day on your list, it feels really good to cross things off your list. So you can even put things like make breakfast. So keep one list, kind of like on your desk if you have a home office, which most people do these days, or at your table or wherever you keep your stuff, maybe even in your purse, and have it written out. Don't do, phones are fine, but if you write things out, I think you think harder about them. I still do a lot of my actual writing of my books and stories by hand, because I find when I'm typing, I'm not as engaged or thinking as deeply. Not always, it's not always the case, but sometimes I find that the brain hand pen to paper connection works better for remembering things and keeping track of things. So your daily list, at least, you might want to write out every morning when you get up or when you have a few minutes. Make breakfast, and you can cross it off the minute you make it. Make lunch, cross it off. And the errands you have to run and the stuff you need to deal with to get through the day. Get your car fixed or whatever. Then you have your week-long list, which is like your goals for the week. Do you have rehearsals for, maybe you're a musician or an actor, and you have all your rehearsals on like Tuesdays and Fridays, from 7 to 10, or, write that on your little list and then cross it off when you get home. Do you have to rehearse for your parts? Do you have to, all these things, 10 minutes here for memorizing your script, 45 minutes here to practice the violin and whatever, right? So you got your weekly lists and how you're going to tackle your week. And also too, once you start seeing things written out, I find anyways, there's less of a sense of confusion or panic or what is it you need to do. Then you can have your long-term lists. For me, like for instance, on my little thing here where I have my list, it's my long-term list, which is still like a daily, weekly, monthly, and I need to cross these things off as fast as possible. So like for instance, I have my space opera romance adventure novel I'm still working on. I've been working on it a couple of years now. It's almost done, and now I'm at the point where I'm starting to go through it for continuity and that sort of thing. Then I have my Witch Upon a Star books. That's my witch erotic romance books with each sign of the zodiac, and that particular thing has been on my list for many years. But right now, since now we have the Romance Daily News horoscopes, my Witch Upon a Star books are kind of related to this whole new shift with how Riverdale Avenue Books is now with Romance Daily News. And then so now I have to get a fire under my ass to really get the rest of my books done so that they can be sold and, I can make some money and not have to do jobs I don't particularly enjoy. Although these days, I think all the jobs I do enjoy. I've kind of begun to set up my life in such a way that I actually really enjoy getting up in the morning. Right now, there's no jobs I cry about when I wake up in the morning. That's very important because I think we've all had those jobs and days where you just lie in bed crying for the first half hour because you don't want to go to work. Anyways, I don't have those days anymore. I love all my jobs. So then I have one crossed off. I had a story and I got it done. Yeah. And that story was on this little list. This list has been up here since about June. So that story was done about a month ago and I sent it in. But now there's a monster story that I handed in the first draft. Well, I handed in the story to the editor, and then now they've sent it back for edits. And so I can't cross it off yet till the final edits are done and it's sent back. Then I have another story where I also am tinkering with a bit, and then that story will get out, and that story's been on this list too long as well. And then there's a couple of other stories that I think the deadline's already passed for them, and they weren't invite stories. I try to only write invite stories these days because when I write get in the slush pile. Like, I find it really hard to write short stories anyways, so I only do the ones I'm invited into. And then so up on this little list I have 3 books and 3 stories. So that's kind of like my week-month list. That's my big picture list. Then I suppose ultimately I may have a bucket list, but I'm at the age now where I've done a lot of things I wanted to do on my bucket list, but you may not. I'm sure most of you haven't. So you need to have your bucket list, like you want to go to Europe, or you want to be published by HarperCollins, or you want to meet, Mark Hamill or whatever. So you got to get your big list happening. So you have goals. And the thing is, why we make these lists is not only to keep ourselves organized and remember, especially because we get so busy, remembering from point A to B to C, but also to feel good when we cross them off. And it helps us think about, what do we really want? What do we want from life? And are we on the right path to get it? So these are all the reasons for making lists. And this is why this week is a perfect week for details and lists. It's back to school. Make those lists. You can put it on a calendar. You can write on scraps of paper. All sorts of things. And then we have, so I had things like details, being organized, working on communication, and focusing on the big goals, things like that. And then also this week in matters of the heart, there might be confusion between sex and romance. So if you're in a relationship and you're a little confused about what's happening in it, you may want some clarity or make sure that you're both on the same page, because sometimes people get into relationships and one person thinks it's a serious relationship, we're getting married, we got it all going on, we're in this together, whereas the other person, like, sure, they might be getting married, but in fact they're just screwing around with everyone in sight, and that's their deal. And then if one's not talking to the other, they both have different goals. It can be very devastating for one or the other or both, because you get into fights and so on. And so really, I guess what I'm trying to say is clear expectations and keep communication open. Because this week, like I said, it's this week that these sorts of tensions might arise. And then there's also things about being tense in your relationships in general for most of us because of the way the planets are. There may be some competitive tension. I know, in some marriages, I'm divorced, I'm single, I haven't had a date in years, but for the rest of you, like if you're in a marriage or you're both in the same kind of field, this week you may be getting really competitive with each other, and that doesn't bode well for romance. I know, like, when people first meet, they think it's cool that, oh yeah, we have this competition thing going on. But as the years go by, it can really become a difficulty for the relationship, instead of something that once brought you together is now kind of causing some animosity. Can I talk today? Animosity between you. So you want to make sure you stay clear and focused with those ideas too. So again, it all boils down to communication, whether it's communicating to yourself with lists, communicating with your lover or romantic partner or your husband or wife about what's really going on in your relationship, and picking your battles. And on the other hand, there's also stuff this week about being really playful in the bedroom and having a really good time. And so, maybe role playing or just fantasies, maybe go to a fetish night or whatever, depending what floats your boat. And some people like to go to swingers clubs, and maybe that's a playful thing for them, or for other couples that would be a devastation they can never come back from. So everybody's different, we all have our own stuff. And so anyways, that's a bit of how I see the week. And like I said, go to romancedailynews.com and read about your specific sign. Let me know what you think. And don't forget, you can get tarot readings from me anytime. You can email me, or you can go to Fiverr. I still do tarot card readings on Fiverr. I do them through tarotpass.com. If you're in the Toronto area, we can meet up and have in-person readings or Skype meetings. I'm also available for parties and so on. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this week's kind of glimpse, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.